Thanks for all squeezing in, yeah? Hopefully it won't be too long. So today I'm going to be talking about Vagrant App, development environments made easy. That's my motto. Ask the guys in my team, I try and automate everything to logging into servers and automate my work if I could, but it's not possible really. So there's a typical problem. You hire a new guy, and we say, right, okay, get the STP backend up and running. He copies a VM from somewhere, he's running some weird flavor of Linux or Windows, or there's different versions. He just, you know, he's left to his own devices. Version conflicts, weird, just sort of weird and different setups, and everyone's machine is different, and so it's a pretty common problem and leads to subtle bugs down the road. You know, if you don't have some specific database config or whatever, you may be thinking it's working, but and your code works. You'll see things like this. No idea where to start. Famous one. Write some code, deploy it, it doesn't work.
That's true.
So there's a couple of scenarios that are generally, you know, run through to sort of solve or try and solve these problems. The one is setup scripts. So, but they're a bit of a maintenance nightmare. So this is a setup script to set up your environment so that it mimics production, right? A maintenance nightmare. Now, if you've got some new fancy new kid on the block and he's got a shiny Mac, now do you have a setup script for him? Who maintains all of this stuff? Just a nightmare, right? And at the end of the day, we hired to code, not to set up environments and fiddle around with scripts and things. Scenario 2 is an Uber README file. Developers don't like maintaining English, so documents are never updated, as hard as we try. They're also platform specific and hugely time consuming. Scenario 3, which is the most common one, is the good luck, have fun. Where you just build, deploy, and solve one issue exception at a time. Rinse and repeat, days go by. We have a thing in our team called IBM Blues. I think they don't come up with the term, but just sort of idling away, trying to solve these WebSphere issues for weeks on end, you know. So I mean, all these supposed solutions have common issues. They're not repeatable, not isolated, difficult to understand, and super slow. So this is where Vagrant comes into the picture. It's a free tool for creating, managing, and distributing portable dev environments. So I'm going to cover it a bit later, but it allows you to create virtual machines, manage them, so spin them up, spin them down, suspend them, and it also allows you to distribute the VM that you've been working on to the rest of the team, which is the most important part, I guess. So this is literally what a new team member would have to do with Vagrant. Assuming everything else is set up and your proxy and everything else is right, but in terms of the tool, this is what you would have to do. It's that easy. So there's three main components. There's a Vagrant file, the Vagrant box, and then obviously the Vagrant command line tool. The command line tool is heavily, it's called Git based, so you know everything's done by the command line. You never need to leave the command line to manage your Vagrant instances. And then just a bit of a sentence. Vagrant reads a Vagrant file and builds a VM based on a template called a box. So the Vagrant file describes the VM basically, and networking, any resources that you dependent on. It's written in Ruby, domain-specific language. You don't need to know Ruby. I certainly don't, and it's just really assigning variables. Got a bit of an example here. So this is the complete Vagrant file for the STP backend that I built. You say that, so it's based on this box, which is a CentOS 6.4 VM. Someone else on the web built it and installed it, and that's the expensive part in maintaining VMs, is installing the OS all the time. There are security issues, I suppose, doing this, and ultimately we need to be building our own boxes, but I don't have the time for now. This sets up a private network between your host and the guest. I think it's easier to manage than port forwarding and all the other issues. This uses Chef, which I'll go through a bit later, but basically it's an automation tool. And I've told it to...
Is that private network specifying the IP address of the box that's going to spin up?
Yeah, of the VM.
So it's just arbitrary, whatever you want to set it to.
Whatever you want. 10 dots and 192.168 are usually private networks, so just keep it something obvious. And this is saying that you want the Git and Java and Maven recipe to be run, and basically that just installs Git, Java and Maven, the latest versions.
Can you specify a specific version?
Yep, you can. So the nice thing about this is that, you know, if you want to use Ubuntu, you just change this here to an Ubuntu box that you've loaded into Vagrant, and then the Chef recipes worry about on that server exactly how you set up Git and installing daemons and services, and all that stuff's just, you know, handled for you, because we're not paid to worry about that.
But John, where do you get that box from?
They're freely available on the internet. Ops code, the guys that do Chef actually provide a lot of boxes. I suppose they would be more trustworthy. Then there's Puppet Labs. There's a couple of these automation technologies that are evolving now. I think there's 3 or 4 main ones. Puppet, Chef, CF Engine is the other one. And basically the idea is to, you know, turn your infrastructure or code your infrastructure. So you define in code what your infrastructure must look like, and these tools just make it happen. Bring up nodes and deploy stuff there, and so you don't really have that maintenance and configuration.
Infrastructure as code.
Yeah.
So a dodgy box could lead to security issues.
Yeah, but you don't. So not at that level, but it just makes you very flexible, you know. And it's also all the config is then centralized, and I do something, and you know you get the benefit of it.
I take it this is also applicable to test environments, and you can set it up in the same way.
Yeah. So the idea is that these things are temporary virtual machines. You set them up, you do some stuff, you code against it, you just destroy them. Obviously, all the stuff you do needs to be checked in somewhere, or ops can use it for testing. You can also have, in a single Vagrant file, multiple nodes, so you can have, so the STP backend, and in production we have, let's say 4 servers per stack. You actually want to replicate that in dev because it helps you uncover issues. A lot of the issues that we encounter are networking or firewall rules or something you didn't think about because it's running on 1 server in dev. You deployed prod and now it's running on 3 or 5 servers, and there's lots of issues that come with that. So this way you can just define multiple VMs. I haven't done it in this scenario, but you can define multiple VMs and it will spin up 4 VMs for you.
How do you assign resources like CPU, RAM, those things to it? Is it part of that CentOS like the general config? Or
it comes with a default, and then generally they're pretty, so like 12 megs of RAM and like 1 CPU, 3 gigahertz. but I actually increased the RAM. I'll show you in the Vagrant file a bit later. Increased it to 1 gig. But these VMs are running headless, so they're very lightweight. If you look at the memory they use like 200, 300 megs. Whereas if you fire up a normal VM in VirtualBox, it just destroys your PC. So I'm sure you could run easily, 10 of these VMs.
What does that mean, headless?
Yeah, agree. How long does it take to spin up an airbox?
Not everyone knew that.
So it depends on the recipes that you're applying, and obviously internet speed.
You see,
Here it took about 10 or 15 minutes. But you don't provision, so you won't install everything every single time. To Vagrant up on subsequent occasions will be a lot faster. Okay, so boxes, we've discussed some of this. Templates from which machines are created, contains a pre-installed OS, any publicly available, typically lightweight, can be custom made, managed by the command line.
But do you think people still need a license like for Windows or whatever to actually have the box? Or,
That's what
Yeah.
we don't use Windows.
Doesn't apply. Doesn't apply to Windows. But it's OS agnostic, so you can use Windows as long as the license is baked into the box, or I'm not sure, I haven't looked into that.
Old version.
Yeah.
yeah,
Since they're temporary, just spin up, spin down.
yeah, I mean, they give you 40 days or what?
You're moving away from Windows, aren't you?
That's right.
So you only need to know the top 3 commands to really use Vagrant. Vagrant up boots the machine, destroy it, completely destroys it. That leads back to the isolated comment earlier that you can completely break the VM and then just destroy it and create a new one. There's no impact to your desktop. Vagrant SSH just shells into the box. Then hold, suspend, reload, provision. I mean, those verbs are pretty self-explanatory. The provision, the reload actually reloads the OS basically and reruns all the chef recipes and the shell scripts that you've asked it to run. And the provision is a sort of a lighter weight version of that.
John, I assume I can have that box that you actually load. So if you specify an OS, you say there's a lot available on the web, but I assume I can store that image locally as well. Because,
Oh, yeah.
Or because I mean, is it going to pull it from the web the whole time?
So you can do that, but what I've done here is a Vagrant add box,
Yeah.
and I added, created a box with this name pointing to that .box file,
Okay.
which is
Okay,
stored
so-
locally.
Awesome. Then.
But for distributed, I suppose you put that on your local intranet and you just specify the URL. You don't need to add any boxes or anything in.
Isn't it Git out of Git as well? Or not?
Yep. So the whole project's stored in Git.
But the box, you can't get it.
You can, if
into
you want.
Git.
Yeah, it's a bit of bloat for Git, I think. So Chef is an automated platform that transforms IT infrastructure into code. Hundreds of maintained and reusable cookbooks. The Vagrant uses Chef Solo, which is like the free version that they're trying to get the techies like us to buy into, and then we'll convince powers that be that we need the enterprise version. The enterprise version is like a Chef server that manages all the cookbooks and recipes for your whole estate, and it can manage up to, I think, 10,000 servers. But I mean, all the big major IT companies are starting to go this route.
And
Ideally, we should do this in prod, right? One day.
Yeah.
is it expensive?
I haven't looked at the pricing, but the Chef Solo is free, so. I think it's less expensive than having a team of people installing OSs and configuring infrastructure. And it's repeatable. You do something in UAT and you rerun it on production, you know it's going to work. Okay, I'll show you guys a bit of a demo. Of course, it broke now. Command timeout. So these environment variables are really important. Even in Windows they work.
So can you explain what it's doing?
Okay, so it uses a plugin called Berg Shelf, which is supposed to be bookshelf, but these guys are all a bit strange. And so it manages your cookbooks and the dependencies. So you can see that all of these cookbooks were basically downloaded from somewhere. Java, Git, Maven are specified, and obviously these have some other dependencies. So it just manages that whole dependency tree for you, a bit like Maven in a way. And then here it goes through the chef stuff, and eventually you see it's going to run these recipes, Git, Java, and Maven.
Is this a bit that takes 10 minutes?
It shouldn't take that long.
So with Chef, can you define your own recipes?
You can, that's ultimately where we need to go. So like for the STP backend, we'll have a recipe that
installs the
just
whole thing.
does everything instead of a script.
You need to be a chef first, kid.
Yeah.
Just needs to define
It's not like
the
cooking out recipes. Didn't make your
Can you as well?
It doesn't seem to be behaving now. But I did show you HANA earlier. And this is my machine, so there's no excuses there.
You've got 2 instances maybe. How do you check which instances you have?
So I'll fire up another. There's a couple of useful commands. You can check the status of the VM.
Or not?
Open.
I'm just going to show you guys the memory that it uses. So I mean, it's using 200 megs of virtual memory and like 70 of real, so
And is that the one you spun up with the gig?
yeah. Vagrant SSH. The host name's a bit cooked because of the IP conflict or something. But proc. So you've got a gig of memory and 1 i7. I don't know why.
Right?
Because I have to change this. So this tool, CNTLM, is very handy. What it basically is a local proxy where you put your NT credentials in, and then you just tell this whole Vagrant setup to use a local proxy. It doesn't have to worry about usernames or anything, because I had some issues trying to specify and get it to do NT auth and all that automatically. Okay, so this is actually working now.
The chef is running.
So the corporate network is actually a real challenge.
It's a real hurdle, yeah. I mean, most of the time spent trying to get this working was figuring out how to. Yeah. And then obviously your guest, your VM, has to also know about the proxy and has to have a network route through to your local machine. And
So with the enterprise version, that kind of works like, is there like a central server which kind of typically works like Nexus, currently where instead of actually going outside to get all the recipes, you connect to that enterprise server. Is that how it works?
yeah.
Could we use a solo on a repository in Nexus to actually do that already? Perhaps.
I'm not sure. Chef Solo just downloads the recipes from Ops Code, their website. So like the Java recipes, is maintained by the community and by themselves as well, and you can specify different flavors of Java, different versions. I haven't looked into the whole enterprise side of it that much.
Enterprise might solve the proxy issue. But I don't know how you see that with the outside. It's probably got some.
Yeah.
It's not many tools that can solve static proxy issue.
No, he did with his proxies like
That's a cool tool. Web says, I will keep.
So I know this is a bit of the boring part, but I've got to get it to work because it wasn't working.
He's actually definitely got to think about food, John. Check there, yum, Check this okay, keep shit there. It automatically puts the keys in.
Also, Vagrant does it for you. When you create a Vagrant box, it will generate a private key for you. So Vagrant SSH just shells straight in. To use it with PuTTY, you need to just save the key as a SSH or the RSA version 2 key or something. Okay, this is looking better.
Everyone knows how to do that, yeah?
John, is this rebuilding the VM?
So this rebuild is rebuilding it, yeah.
Can you have more than one Vagrant VM running on the machine at a time?
Yeah. Simultaneously.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you'll see now this is hopefully doing some stuff, yeah.
Can I just have a show of hands? Which teams actually have Linux VMs in their testing or in their pipeline? Are you running VMs to do testing? Or
They're all Microsoft stack.
no Linux at all.
You mentioned Linux and they start pushing in the pen.
Stay on the right side of
Where's Vagrant gone? What's shut this So when it works, I mean, so what this actually did was kind of commented these out, but this does wget from our Nexus, and it fetches the release versions of these two files, and then
Don't show them the parts, right?
does some other magic.
So John, were you able
Starts
to
it.
put something like WebSphere in these virtual machines or install the installation of WebSphere?
Should be. It's normal Linux.
I think what you would do in that case is probably create a VM, install WebSphere, set it up how you want, and then you make that a box as a template for the rest of the team. I don't think you try and automate the install of WebSphere.
I agree. Have it pre-installed.
So that's
Are there tools that can actually read a fully set up server, not a VM? Or like for example, I pointed to one of your UAT servers to actually copy all the configuration and create a box out of that.
You did it for VM. But I
I'm
don't know
not
if you
sure.
can do it on. I've done a Windows one like that before, but I haven't done a Linux one. But there is tools like that.
So I know there are AWS providers. So the free provider with Vagrant is VirtualBox, which is a bit crap in some ways. Like you can't change the ports that it's using, like while it's running. And so there's a VMware provider, but that's $79 a seat. So if you've got a massive VMware infrastructure in your organization, I suppose you'd go for that option. VMware is a bit better in a lot of respects. So I mean, here's our liberator up, and that's from reloaded, well, basically, yeah, reloaded and provisioned a VM to the software working. Done.
That's less than a cup of coffee, eh?
So when it works, I mean, you know, there's some proxy issues and some other weird things you need to be careful of. But so a new guy joins a team, he checks out the repo, he installs Vagrant app, done. And obviously now, if Casper finds some weird issue and he fixes it in the Vagrant file, right? So this is the Vagrant file for this project. You know, we're all working on the same code base, and whatever optimizations you make, I benefit from. So I just destroy my one and create a new one. And I suppose, yeah, there's still a lot we need to do, like often with Git and SVN, there's always sort of hidden directories where it keeps all its proxy, it caches proxy credentials and all that nonsense. So I suppose we can, I don't know, do some interactive thing where you ask for your username when you provision the VM or.
John, does it only
whatever.
support headless containers, or can you actually, in the
No, you
case
can-
if they want to run Windows in a container which needs a GUI?
You can say here vb.gui equals true or something like that.
Okay, so then you
Can't
can
really
switch
see
it
that.
on. Okay.
And that will then give you X Windows. So yeah, I mean that's it. This Vagrant file can work on multiple OS as well. So Chef handles, you know, if you're installing an Ubuntu, it knows how to install Git in Ubuntu. You don't have to worry about that. So it's all just makes our life a lot easier.
Sorry, that last script that you have, the last line, that's where you actually deploy your additional components.
Yeah. So I've provisioned a shell provider and I said this is the path. The other thing I haven't showed you is that so this folder is mapped to this
You
here.
can share between your Windows and your container.
So go to
So typically what you do is you set up your code base in /vagrant and use local tools to edit.
That's a CD root?
Yeah.
Yeah. No man.
Just slash. Just slash.
No man, just
forward slash.
like not as in root, just yeah.
Yeah.
Where is that though? Where is it now?
Either way,
That's
Such a file there? Where's it gonna run?
You won't.
Oh.
Only /vagrant is
share it across.
Okay.
You can
You can
obviously
sudo
create a
with-
symbolic link
Yeah.
from there into the root, and then you can see
It's
it.
confusing is that Anton.
so it's useful to know that you can root. You can SU to root and the password is vagrant. But the default user that SSHs you in is vagrant.
Nice.
The end. So I've got a bit of appendix here with the links, prerequisites, CNTL and proxy. I mean, this works seamlessly at home. Just here on the bank, you need to do some proxy magic. VirtualBox you need installed, Vagrant you need installed, and then Putty or whatever shell you like. And these are the two plugins I use.
Adding for those to a bunch of time requirements.
But if, I mean, would this be something that could help you to?
Yeah, for feature testing, perfect. But performance testing, obviously, we really want to consider box itself. That is something else.
So there's no guys on Linux actually accessing your OST platform?
There's no guys
on Linux accessing the OST platform? Or Windows guys?
They mean clients?
Yeah, clients.
That matter.
Yeah, I couldn't really be applicable.
I think where it would be valuable would be with the IBM WebSphere. I mean, you constantly have to set it up and try and get config right. There would have a little bit of benefit. But I mean,
I think ideally if you can get something that can, like for example, can run it off my PC, creates a config box based off my profile, my PC or everything. Then you can just give that to any developer.
Also, you're right.
And
So,
then
so all developers can run the WebSphere component
Yeah.
in that little VM thing, and then it's pointed there and it goes to IIS, because that's a problem for you guys. Work for them, John.
Yeah, so that's it.
Very cool.
Cool, thank you, John.
Any questions?
Thanks, John.
Question is, where's the snacks? I don't know. They might actually arrive still. I phoned them, they said they're on the way. I don't know.
See what happens when Shauna doesn't deal with this.
Thanks very much.
Cool, man.
Thanks. Cheers.
Cheers.